So if you have a natural affinity, you've shown your Taylor love as a brand for years, of course you're going to play, right? That's a signal to you. Go ahead and be part of this. You're in the cultural conversation. You're in the zeitgeist of this. What do you think about it?
I would think about these moments as like almost building cultural currency, with an audience. And I think, especially in this day and age, companies need all the currency that they can get, right? With an audience, with the customer, with the consumer.
I think my gut reaction was I loved it. I loved celebrating that moment because it was something that was important to me, as a Swiftie. But I also think, to your point, it's interesting to see the play. And I was also thinking about it from a business perspective as well.
Welcome to We Fixed It. You're welcome. The show where we take over companies, you come along for the ride, and we try to put them back better than we found them.
It's not Halloween yet, but we've been seeing a lot of orange everywhere, specifically a certain sparkly type of orangey color. And there's one person to thank for that, Taylor Swift. When she announced her 12th album and associated it with the color orange, brands could not contain themselves. Since the color orange is essentially free, brands started tripping over themselves to drench themselves in orange as fast as they could. We don't even know if this album's any good yet, but come on, it probably is. So Swifties, we're not here to hate on anything. We're just trying to figure this phenomenon out. And we're here to fix whether it's fair play to ride Taylor's wave, whether it's all too much, and whether a brand should join in on an already saturated trend or just sit it out and wait. Melissa, enlighten us. Tell us more.
Hi, I am a resident Swiftie, so I'm just going to say that. I'd love to talk a little bit about acknowledging that Taylor Swift is the GOAT when it comes to PR and marketing. This isn't luck. It's a masterclass in building a universe. It started with Easter eggs, secret clues in lyrics, videos, and even her outfits that turn fans into detectives, in creating endless free content and theories. And you've seen it all over TikTok, all over X. It's everywhere. And this has been going on for years. Hence her appearance on Jimmy Fallon a couple of years ago. And when she asked, when is it too far in advance to drop an Easter egg? Is 3 years too far? And that's what she was doing already. And then also comes the business side, all the re-recordings, $1 billion lemonade out of Lemon's move. She didn't just re-release old music, she made it an event. From the vault tracks, she added new album art and giving fans a moral mission to support her version, which had been sold from beneath her. She has now bought all those versions back, so she owns all her music, and she announced that on the podcast of her boyfriend and his brother, New Heights from the Kelsey brothers. It's genius. When everyone told her it was a bad idea, she knew it was going to be how she got her music back. And then we can't forget the personal touch. Commenting on her fan posts, sending them gifts, making them feel seen and heard. She didn't just build a fan base, she built a militia of devoted Swifties, myself included, who will move mountains and algorithms, for that matter, just for her. So pop-up listening parties at her own home where she actually baked cookies that she made so that fans could listen to her songs. And she picked those fans specifically from following them on social media and hearing what they were saying. She didn't pick me, so I'm waiting for the next release. So by the time Life of a Showgirl actually in its signature orange glitter aesthetic dropped this last week, the machine was already primed. She didn't have to say a word. She just posted an orange glittery square with a lock on it and the countdown. And the internet did the rest. Just crazy amount. Currently, the podcast and views on YouTube has broken the internet. It's over 18 million as of yesterday, which is beyond any other podcast. The countdown clock, she's showing different versions. And the fact that everyone knows her PR guru, Tree Payne, says a lot. So who did it well? What notable brands leveraged that orange glitter trend? There were a lot of companies, including United Airlines, Olive Garden, Shake Shack, FedEx, Buffalo Wild Wings, Walmart, Netflix, several NHL teams. They all use that glittery orange to kind of create visuals for user searches on Taylor Swift, getting millions of views, reinforcing platform-wide engagement, hoping to bring their brand up in the algorithm universe. Dunkin' added orange glitter overlays with witty captions. Starbucks included their own Swift-inspired coffee posts. These are all examples of showcasing how blending that cultural moment with authentic brand elements can drive significant attention. Then there were less effective, attempts, which is just throwing orange on your brand without connecting a message. And it kind of falls flat. And it also emphasized the need for more thoughtful integration. So for a true cautionary tale about trying to jump on the bandwagon and this kind of thing, I'd like to talk about Blackout Tuesday, hashtag Blackout Tuesday. After George Floyd's murder, this was meant to be a day of reflection. And what happened was well-meaning brands and people, posted black squares, but that accidentally flooded the social media algorithms and silenced the activist hashtags. And so they jumped on the bandwagon without understanding the destination. So it was really a lesson in the perils of not doing your homework. So those are that's kind of wrapping that into like, do you want to jump on the bandwagon or do you not? And are you doing something at the detriment of your brand? So she has created this masterfully crafted marketing universe. So the problem we're trying to fix today is that gut punch moment when the entire internet is screaming about one thing and your brand's social feed is just not crickets. So when brands fail to listen and adapt quickly enough to integrate into these cultural moments, they miss chances to visibly connect with these energized audiences. So it's more than just FOMO, it's relevancy. And how do you stop watching from the sidelines and actually jump into that conversation without really creating a disaster for yourself? So let's go ahead and fix it. Anyone, Aaron, Kadira, you want to jump in with you?
Well,
your
let's start with this situation and we'll extrapolate it out to other ones. It's a double-edged sword, right? So if you have a natural affinity, you've shown your Taylor love as a brand for years, of course you're going to play, right? That's a signal to you. Go ahead and be part of this. You're in the cultural conversation. You're in the zeitgeist of this. What do you think about it? If you are some of the ones you meant, Olive Garden, FedEx, do we really know that they've had this Taylor alignment for all this time? And do we care what they think? They got the lift from it. They got a ride out of it. But are they, do we care that they're playing along? That's the double-edged sword is if you have, well, I guess the straight shot is if you've been tried and true for all these years, go for it. If you are sitting on the sidelines and you see a moment, the double-edged sword is if you play too far into it and has no connection or bearing to what you're all about, that's a problem. And if you sit it out and do nothing and everyone else is around you, part of this moment of significance for whatever reason, it's culturally significant right now, and you're just watching and doing nothing and, posting Happy Tuesday, that's a problem too. So that's a double-edged sword in this situation. And of course, you got into already larger and even I'd say more societally important situations too that brands have had navigated well and also had missteps in.
Yeah. And I would think about these moments as like almost building cultural currency, with an audience. And I think especially in this day and age, companies need all the currency that they can get, right, with an audience, with the customer, with the consumer. Because I think what it really signals is like, it's not that a company is just pushing their product. Buy our coffee, buy our candy, buy our car, whatever. It's when they participate in these moments, it's saying like, we're a part of the world you're living in as well. We're here right along with you, right? And so, I think it comes down to like, to your point, Aaron, as well, like this double-edged sword, having to decide if you're going to participate in the moment, right? And if you choose to ignore it, maybe it doesn't align with your value, maybe it doesn't align with your brand, maybe it just feels inauthentic. You run the risk still of just kind of looking culturally ignorant, if you will. But I think relying on, these viral moments just for the sake of going viral, that's also not a strategy, right? So I just want to be clear about that as well. Like going viral isn't a strategy in itself. I think there's nuance. And again, I think it's not just about like hopping on every trend. It's really about how can we as a company, how can we as a brand translate, what is happening in this moment to really speak in our unique voice, our unique perspective to our audience. And Melissa, you called out, I was watching as well some of the companies that did it really like well, right? Like Starbucks, I thought was great. M&M was like cute and perfect, right? Dunkin' Donuts was great. Like they all did a great job of like leveraging the moment, but they made it their own, and it was really seamless. It was like, yeah, I get that, an orange M&M, of course, right? Like, of course you're gonna have, an orange square behind you. I think the other thing here is timeliness and just knowing that time is of the essence in these moments, right? So it's these moments happen and then they're gone. They are no longer relevant. When we talk about relevancy, the audience has moved on. We live in a day of social media, folks. Our attention spans are like 15 seconds long. And so I think the other thing here is just a brand's ability, of course, to make sure that it integrates well, but also to be able to adapt very, very quickly. If you wait too long on this moment, it's gone. We're on to the next thing.
Well, okay, there on that. I mean, the problem wasn't that M&M, and there's a few brands that caught onto it and did something authentic and clever. This came out on October. The podcast came out October 13th. There's a great article in Adweek that as of August 13th, as of August 19th, there were 2,600 posts by brands. We'll call it cashing in on the moment. So it wasn't 5 brands that articulated something well and had it well orchestrated, and 2,600 posts from different brands. Some of them had no business being there, but yet they said, count us in.
We want in on that. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's it also goes into the question of now the creative context and content and the social media manager role in a company and in the marketing team. And so something that maybe Erin, you could speak to more, but like in the past, I've worked at large corporations where the social media was actually kind of a firefighter, the social media manager, right? So that they're also like looking at social media. So like, are we getting like dinged on LinkedIn because we had an issue, an outage, for example? I'm just making that up. But like, you'll see that like now people have gone to social media to like also raise complaints, right? So like that was one role of social media managers, was like looking to see, making sure that their brand wasn't getting slammed by like United Airlines is a perfect example that you can talk about. Like, they used the orange clear background, had a plane, they had a little thing on theirs. But like they're also, social media manager is also the one who's constantly on Twitter and constantly on Threads looking at all the people complaining about like delays in Newark and blah 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 blah, and like the bathroom wasn't working, whatever it might be, and you'll see all of this stuff going on. So like, what is that role of that social media manager and their ability to like address this trend, like as you said, like so quickly and turn something around? Like, are you allowing those people in your organization to have the autonomy to make some of these calls? Because Erin, a marketing campaign usually doesn't take 12 hours to there's like all these hoops you have to go through. You got to go through legal, you got to go through you've got to go through the design team because they're like, oh, that's not the right color, or that's the wrong font, blah 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 blah, what are you trying to say? So like, this is really kind of an interesting idea, like when you think about like all of the different brands, Duolingo, like all these brands that we've actually talked about and companies that we've talked about, Starbucks, all of them, Dunkin' Donuts, like Chris, they're all jumping in on this. But like, to be able to do that, you have to like pivot so quickly. And that's a different type of marketing. It's kind of like ninja marketing. It's not like the same kind of thing, a well thought out program.
Well, Melissa, put your Swiftie hat on for a second, or keep it on throughout the episode. It's up to you. But gut check it. All the brands then that you saw, you saw all the social, you saw all the reactions. Did that seem like a celebratory moment to you? Like, good, every brand I know and interface with is as excited as I am for this cultural moment we're building toward, or did it feel inauthentic? Like, what was your just gut reaction to it?
I think my gut reaction was I loved it. I loved celebrating that moment because it was something that was important to me, as a Swiftie. But I also think, to your point, it's interesting to see the play. And I was also thinking about it from a business perspective as well. Like, oh, that is an interesting thing. Like, Olive Garden dressing up their breadstick, life of a breadstick, like kind of play on thing, it was kind of it was hilarious. I was like, that's funny. And then Elmo, Sesame Street got in on it, all the things. I mean, there's certain brands that you would automatically think we're going to jump in on it. Like I wasn't surprised by Starbucks, of course. They've done a whole, Swiftie fall thing, whatever. I wasn't surprised because the Empire State Building has been amazing about her and her release albums. They've always like painted the building purple, orange, whatever the colors were. They've always done that. And then they have some cute, little tweet that they put out. So there are certain brands that I was like, of course, expecting that. And I feel like that was just in line exactly. I think that being more surprised by other brands that like did something and you're like, okay, that just felt, it did feel inauthentic. Like for some, they putting like the color orange on their page or the background of it doesn't feel, I'd like it to be like a little more witty. So like, I like those kinds of, capturing the moment, but also tying it back to what they are. So if it's Dunkin', tying it back to coffee or donuts or whatever, you know what I mean? Or for the love of that, she has so many songs. Like, so I loved like seeing when people put a song in there and said, oh, and then that actually tied into maybe whatever their brand actually is.
Yeah.
And it's clearly not costing them hardly anything to put it out there. I mean, I get the cost is to their culture brand, right? Like, got to be careful, right?
But even if I, build out a little bit, I mean, even Melissa, as you're talking, about what felt authentic, more so than others. I mean, again, just thinking about that, the teams internally, right, that are responsible for this. And as you were talking, I was kind of laughing to myself because, I think we all have been a part of those teams and companies where, like you said, it takes 6 weeks, to build out one thing and you've got to align with 500 people in the company. And look, processes and approvals are there for so many reasons, right? Good reasons. Typically, they're put into place to protect the company. So great, right? But again, you have to typically jump through so many hoops just to get something approved or move something along. And as I was saying earlier, I think time is of the essence with these types of moments. Again, you're not going to have 6 weeks to hop on something like this. You're going to have 2 hours, right? Taylor posted something. We've got to make the decision over the next couple of hours what's going to be cool. Mm-hmm. And so I think about for sure, like, how do you empower and or train that social media person to make sure that, they understand that they're brand stewards. They understand cultural nuance, right? So that they're not just kind of carrying the water, but they are actually empowered to do their jobs. I mean, I'd shout out a company like Wendy's. Whoever is running their platforms needs a raise, right? Because I have seen a couple of posts where a customer might have a question or kind of like a snarky complaint or they'll get tagged in something and they have the funniest comebacks. Yeah. If I were a betting woman, I am betting that they are not running that up the chain with 25 people before they post. Now, there's probably guardrails in place to make sure that everybody's good with it, but like it's on brand as well, right?
And the snarkiness is like, I live for it. Like,
love it.
Them trolling McDonald's ice cream machine, how it never is up and running. Like, I love that. That is the most hilarious thing. And that's like a common answer that Wendy's will use to a question. Yeah. If it's like, it's not working, they'll be like, oh, like McDonald's ice cream machine, whatever. And it has that with like Wendy's. It's like talking about a computer being broken or your phone.
Exactly, right? And so again, like, just if I were thinking about internally, okay, so what does that look like? How did they get there? I mean, obviously it's on brand for them. It's how they want to push the envelope. It's how they kind of want to show up as a company. And so, I would always encourage companies to kind of think about, who are you? Before these viral moments happen, who are you anyway? Right? I'm also the queen of a playbook. I have written many in my career. I will forever love them because I think playbooks also help you in, whether that's blue sky or again, outside of these moments. It gives people freedom within a framework to operate, right? So what's the tone? What's our humor? How much are we going to push? What are, the brand voice, all those things. I also think, in these moments, it's okay to say, okay, we're going to establish these teams or huddles or pods of these 10 key stakeholders. And in the event that we need to stand something up within a couple of hours, we're going to pull folks together for 15, 30 minutes on a quick call, on a quick huddle. It's all hands on deck. We need to get some approvals, make some decisions. We're going to make sure we align with the playbook. Y'all all good? We good? Okay, go. Right? Versus again, how we know that it can take, months to put some sort of campaign together. So, and then, lastly, I would just say, like, it is in these moments where you have to normalize risk taking. Again, if you don't say anything, you potentially are running the risk of that going really badly with customers and employees, et cetera. If you do say something, there's a risk there as well. But I think just from like a people side, when I think about your, a company's employees, you have to kind of build that psychological safety, whether it's with the social media manager who's going to be putting together those posts and kind of managing it on the front lines, or even your employees being comfortable enough to kind of raise it up the flagpole to say, hey, how are we responding to this thing that all these other companies are responding to? So, yeah.
Yeah, I love what you said about the playbook, because to me, what I think is really important is they need to have this strategy now, because this is definitely something that's happening more often than not. And it's not just a Swifty thing. Well, she's huge, but it's happening in other environments too. We talk about the American Eagle snafu, right? With the ad, and like then people's responses to that, those are the kinds of things that need to happen. So I love that idea of having like a rapid response team, right? Kind of like you have for disaster recovery. You have this for a lot of different things in corporations, and have a templated like rapid response FAQ kit or something that can be quickly adapted. So, you've already got like levels of approvals that have already been kind of taken down, because you just need 3 signatures at the top. And if they're not available, at one will do, right? Whatever. And kind of creating like the green light test, right? And a list that is like pre-approved list of different types of ideas, and like how far can you go, right? Like in terms of the brand value, tone, safe topics. If it's a trend that fits that list, then like give them free reign, to your point, right? Permission to create the content. And then maybe even like, I don't know that, I don't know, Aaron, you could talk to this. I don't know how much it costs for them to like take a picture and, do all the things that they did to it and then post it on social media. But like just establishing even like a little kitty of monies that's like kind of a small, no questions asked budget, will help to capitalize on these trends. And that, like it could be like the kind of thing that we're talking about, Kadira, with the Wendy's, viral, like, if that person had, and I used to do this in customer service, so in call centers, right? Like each individual rep had X amount of dollars that they could credit a customer based on some escalated issue, whatever it might be. That's the kind of thing that helps people buy into it and actually get something out of it. Because I do think, one of the things that we have to be aware of is just slapping the color orange on your brand. What are you driving? You're driving attention, but are you actually driving business? And I think that's what people want to do. So maybe also having kind of like that true pronged approach of like, we're going to reward your endorphins by giving you the orange glitter thing. And then we're going to slide in a little bit later with, oh, we have a Swifty code. By using the Swifty code, you can come to Starbucks and you can get a 13-cent, because 13's her number or whatever, 13-cent drink or something like that, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Try to drive something out of it versus just putting it out there.
Yeah, I like what you're both saying about having a playbook or almost like crisis management, but flip it. It's like trend management. So you have a triage team or a playbook or a protocol for what happens when something drops culturally. How do we play? How do we play? And you have a way of, like a decision matrix, and a team that's ready to react quickly. To be fair to brands, not all of them were official tie-ins. I don't know how many are sanctioned brand partnerships. That really hasn't come to light yet, if any. She may not have needed it this time around, but some of these brands were pretty well orchestrated and premeditated in this moment. So Panera, for example, they have 72 and Sunny is their creative agency of record as of January. And they've been building toward moments like this and how do we react to it. They did a meal tie-in and they got 500 million impressions and over 500,000 organic views in 72 hours from tying into the moment. So they had a creative agency that doesn't mess around. They knew what they were doing and they timed it well. It was more than an orange square. So there are brands that are pretty meticulous about this type of thing. And then brands too, like I said, that just kind of threw something up and said, yeah, look at us.
Yeah. And I think, as companies are, if they take our idea, and hopefully they will, of building out a playbook, because I think that's definitely one of our really good ideas here is, when you're building out that framework, one of the first questions is like, not should we join in, but it's more around what do we authentically have to say here, right? So as Melissa, Aaron, both of you have already said, and I think we keep saying it because it's like the stamp is like, does it align with our identity? Does it align with our brand? Does it align with our values? Where's the natural fit here? Because again, the audience is smart. We know the audience is smart. Companies, you will get canceled. You'll be accused of, being tone deaf. You'll have the audience scratching your head if things just don't make sense. And again, there's a risk here regardless. There's a risk of participating. There's a risk of not participating. But if you are measuring against these calculated risks, and again, kind of building out that framework and starting with that initial question, you've got a little bit of a better chance of it actually working in your favor, I think.
Well, you've said also is really about linking that viral moment and to something that's very authentic to the brand, which will then actually end up hopefully in conversion to the business side, right? So that it will actually provide this thematic and seamless integration, weaving that trend into the existing product or services that company provides, and making it less of a hard sell, right? And then all of a sudden, if you're Panera, I'm just making this up, Panera already did something, but like if you're Taco Bell, you might say, oh, we are going to have a new orange flavored drink that for 13 cents. It's called the Showgirl, and it goes with every taco you purchase or whatever. So you're just, integrating it, and the trend is actually driving traffic to your site, and tangibly you can see some on-brand business outcome, which I think is really the thing that, like, you can see when somebody's just slapping it and not really thinking about it, and then others that are kind of thinking more about it, like really trying to get their brand in there, right? Like with Olive Garden dressing up a breadstick, right? It's not just about like, oh, we're going to have orange spaghetti. That's not going to happen, right? That's not what they're doing. So I think that, I do think, and I think there's certain things that like, yeah, certain brands, it's a lot, it may be easier to do something like that. But like, we've seen this happen time and time again, that there's these cultural events throughout that, really we need to talk about and like think about like, how do we allow the company to have an integrated experience that is so of the moment, but also kind of ties back to like what the business is really all about and its core.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Well, what I've been wondering is, so you have this, and this is kind of unprecedented brand participation, but like when the Barbie movie came out, it didn't hurt for a brand to be pink for a day, right? And the Smurfs movie kind of came and went, but brands were blue. And then Taylor Swift has a moment and brands were orange. And we just see this mass participation. But when then something comes out that is political or has, more nuanced cultural conversation and brands partake there, does it take the wind out of the sails of things like that when there's such a rush for participation for things like this? Like, does it lose effectiveness? That's what I'm wondering. I think I want to hear what you think about that.
I was going to say that one of the things that was interesting that you saw a lot of people commenting on was taking back the color orange and having it be seen as a positive, uplifting, something we are excited for versus the color orange being maybe aligned with politics and the president. And so I thought that was interesting because I thought, wow, this is bold. She's going with orange, where orange right now is not really the color anybody wants to be associated with. And, and to see people commenting, not just Swifties, right? Now you're talking about commentary across like news field, all areas. And they're all saying, look, she took back the color orange, which was, important. And I think that's an interesting point you have, because like, what happens when it's associated with something that's not as positive, right? That's a risk. And so that's ultimately where, Kadira, having a playbook, have like the green light template, like these are the things that are okay. These things we might need to have a level of approval that we just because we don't want to get caught up in something is really important. But I personally, I think that you have to be careful and balance the risk of making a bad decision and maybe pissing off an entire segment of audience versus missing out. Like again, that is definitely one of the things that I feel like whoever is in charge of that social media account or whatever, that's it's a hard balance.
Yeah. And I think, again, in the playbook, right, as you're building out that framework, it is really asking those kind of key questions of like, again, who are we as a company? I mean, Melissa, like your point about orange and kind of flipping it on its head and taking the power back, I mean, phenomenal. But if you're a company that's maybe been, aligning in a certain direction, you may have folks on your team or powers that be that may have recognized that and called it out and said, yep, we're not leaning into this. We're not going that direction. Right. And so again, I always say, like, in the blue sky, that's where you want to have these conversations. And again, you're not going to be able to kind of predict. There's no way to predict or determine what is going to become a moment or a viral moment that, you're going to participate in, and you're going to plan for it again for 6 months out. But again, in that blue sky, asking yourself around the table, whether it's the social media team, marketing team, HR, whoever is responsible within that company, should be kind of asking questions as they're building out this playbook of like, who are we? How do we lean? What are our current policies? Are we reactive and safe? Are we responsive and bold? Are we a company that tends to lean this way politically? Do we want to play it safe on these types of issues, et cetera? Because the risk is going to be there regardless. It's just a question of like, what risk do you want to lean toward?
Yeah, well, totally, Kadira. And will there be blowback too? Like, let's say something comes out and it's take a stance one way or another. What are you going to say as a brand? And they say something, and maybe it's true and authentic to who they are, or maybe it's performative. Is there going to be a pushback to say, wait a minute, you were all in for Taylor Swift. Why are you being so cautious right now? Or why are you not saying anything in the moment?
That's right.
I think that that's so true. It's like ultimately it's understanding the core of what you are all about as a company, because this can either help or hurt your business. It helps when it's done, like we've been saying over and over again, with the operational alignment, with the employee alignment, with the cultural alignment of the company. It signals relevance, authenticity, building connections with a new and expanded audience, and it can drive business and revenue, right? If it's done correctly, and it's but only if from start to finish everyone buys in on it, right? And is prepared to deliver on that. It hurts when it's, and I think Erin, you mentioned this earlier, when it's a little lazy, it's off brand, it's operationally blind, it's culturally blind, right? Kadira, when you're not thinking about like, wait, what did you just say? When that's not what we're all about, right? So jumping on a sensitive trend or creating demand you can't fulfill also leads to public backlash, customer distrust, and a reputation of being kind of desperate instead of being clever, right? And so those are the things that you really have to be careful about because it really could hurt you.
Yeah. Well, and let's not forget Taylor Swift is eventually here to sell a product, right? It's impending. And if she loses control of this conversation, a brand takes a giant misstep, and then all of a sudden that becomes the center of the story. You know, or it gets too overblown and people are just fatigued by the time the album drops. That could have the opposite effect. So I don't think it will. I think she's going to ride the wave on this, but there are dangers in letting brands participate however they want, and then sitting back and waiting. I think it's all very calculated. I think it's all going to go well, but the ultimate test is, does her product sell better because of this participation?
I don't know that she's really concerned about that at this point.
Yeah.
Sell better. She's record breaking.
Oh, this is album 12.
But
She's done this before.
I do. Yeah. But I agree that like she's made this engaged, so it becomes like this treasure hunt, right, for the audience. Like we're constantly perusing her website. So now since August 13th, she has now dropped, variations of the vinyl. And so every day everybody's going to her website because now you'll see a different color. Like yesterday was like purple and black or blue and black or something like that, and a countdown, right? And then out comes a new vinyl variation. So I think that like, again, it's from her perspective, it's very calculated. She's been laying these Easter eggs since 3 years ago. Outfits she wore during the Eras tours on specific dates, that then tie into August 13th, tie into 10/3 when she's releasing the album, which is Boyfriend's Day, National Boyfriend's Day, and National Plaid Day. So people were wondering because after the Eras tour, every night she was photographed going to dinner with Travis in New York City, she was wearing plaid. And people were like, what's up with the plaid? Is this like, hey, National Plaid Day, October 3rd. National Boyfriend Day. Right. And so she's, showing all of these different types of things. And so for her, the calculation is amazing. But I do think that for the brands, I think that there's a lot of love for the brands that made it feel like they were part of it as well. And they're starting that. I do think for us when we think about how do you fix it if you were a brand that missed out on it or you fell flat, is really, Kadira, what you shared, which is, having some sort of playbook, green light, red light, all the things that can happen, maybe having some sort of, what did you call it? Like a quick group huddle
like a huddle, a pad.
Approval, like an approval umbrella that's really quick. And I think the most important thing that you've shared that I think is really important operationally as well as culturally is like making sure that it ties in to the soul of the company, right?
That's right.
Because otherwise it's not really necessary. And then I think from a marketing perspective, it's about like, how are you thinking bigger about these types of viral cultural moments, and how are you utilizing your social media team to ensure that you have the time and bandwidth to jump on those things? Because like I said, our use of social media teams was a lot of times was trying to put out fires, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be where you didn't have social media, where, you had a bad experience with somebody and you just kind of told your neighbors.
Yeah.
Now you tweet it out and within seconds, millions of people either know it's good or bad, right? And so to me, I feel like there's a lot of work that can be done, and I would love a panel with like the Wendy's social media account, all the what are like killing it. Duolingo, right? They talked about like they did a great job of like integrating the whole Taylor Swift moment, but also not losing their kind of shtick and who they are, right? And so those are the kinds of things that you're trying to find.
I wonder if we're going to see more brand Easter eggs come out of this too. Because the audience just loved playing. You look at the Instagram or TikTok decoding videos, and people love this stuff. They love playing along. And I wonder if brands are going to say, "Look, we put out this thing 2 years ago. You liked it. Now we waited 2 years to tell you, and here it is." And boom, we haven't seen a lot of that. So I wonder if they're going to pick up on this as a marketing strategy too.
Possibly. Yep.
Could be. We are getting our fix timer. Kadira, I think you fixed it for us halfway through, which I really appreciate. I think if you're a brand sitting on the sidelines wondering, do I take part? Instead of rushing in or sitting out, you have a framework. You have a playbook. You have a specialty team that makes those types of decisions for you. Maybe you loop in your agency. Maybe you just have someone that's got carte blanche and has great instincts. But if you put in the right decision-making criteria and you know how you play, whether it's this type of moment or any type of cultural moment, and if it's right, you do it. If not, you don't. Add to that. But would that fix it for you, Kadira?
I think that's perfect. And, just as Melissa said, right, like who are we as a company? What do we stand for as a company outside of this moment? Start there. Again, not asking should we participate, but how does this resonate very authentically with us as a company?
Definitely. What about you, Melissa?
I love it. I think that, like you mentioned, the viral kit, the template, love that. I think, Kadira, what you just said is what I would call the so what test. Like, so what? Why does it matter? Will it really affect us if we don't participate? And, are we just doing it to be opportunistic, or are we thinking about how we can integrate it into who we are as a brand? And then empowerment, it's about empowering your team. And I love the idea that like there are people on the team that may not be the CMO, may not be, all of those people that are able to spot some of these trends and really kind of create something that is really authentic and really witty and just really fun, and kind of get a whole new audience to open up to whatever brand that might be. So
love it.
Love it. I think that was one of our most concise fixes yet. Well, that's going to do it. Huh?
Easter eggs. Well,
maybe there's some Easter eggs here in our episode.
You guys will see. I have a Taylor Swift cup behind me.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. We're going to wrap up our Taylor-centric episode of We Fix It. You're welcome, Melissa. Besides the cup, what's your favorite Taylor Swift album? Do you have one?
Oh, that is a really hard question. I think that I love Folklore. I love Reputation too. So.
Kadira, do you have one?
I don't know. I don't.
Okay.
Hard thing. That's like so.
I know. It's like a personality test.
Like one era versus another era. Like Red is an incredible era too. Yeah.
I'll go with.
I think
I'll go with Midnights. Yeah, keep that one going.
Yeah, she's just awesome.
Yeah,
I saw her actually at a
man. It comes right back at you.
I actually saw her at a rally. Actually, she puts on an amazing show. So it was great. Yeah,
very cool.
It's hard to choose.
Nice. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we're gonna ride the wave too, Taylor. We just fixed a bunch of stuff for you. So if you start making the podcast rounds, be sure to stop by and see us.
All right.
And for everyone who's not Taylor Swift, if you're caught up on our show, we'll be back with more season 2 next week. If you're new to our show and you want to tour our eras, you see what I did there? You can go all the way back to the start of season 1 at wefixitpod.com. We are your fearless fixers with expertise across operations, customer experience, corporate responsibility, social impact, branding, and marketing. And you can reach out to us there too, wefixitpod.com. If your own company breaks and you don't call us, you're on your own, kid. So don't let that happen. We will see you next time. We hope you enjoyed this episode of We Fixed It, You're Welcome. We go into every episode somewhat cold, and nothing we say should be construed as legal advice, financial advice, or anything that would get us in trouble. All trademarks, IP, and brand elements remain property of their respective owners.